In 2022, Nigerian law enforcement uncovered a highly organized fraud ring inside the Opay network. Over the course of 6 months, the syndicate managed 212 individual accounts and intercepted more than 180 million naira in stolen funds. All 212 accounts had successfully cleared the platform's biometric verification and Know Your Customer checks. Yet investigators discovered that not one of these account holders was a real human being. This is synthetic identity fraud. Traditional identity theft relies on assuming the credentials of an existing person. Synthetic identity fraud is the complete fabrication of a new entity that is designed specifically to pass automated verification systems. Constructing a ghost profile involves assembling several distinct layers of evidence. Threat actors combine real stolen data, like a valid national identity number, with falsified government documents and mathematically generated biometric faces. This vulnerability has scaled alongside the rapid growth of the fintech sector in sub-Saharan Africa. In Nigeria, digital payment platforms process trillions of naira each year. By 2022, Opay alone had scaled to over 40 million registered users. High-growth platforms operating at this volume cannot rely on human personnel to manually review every new user. They depend entirely on automated identity verification to onboard thousands of customers every day. Generative artificial intelligence has weaponized this automated onboarding layer. Threat actors can now manufacture digital identities at scale, injecting fabricated users directly past institutional defenses before a human ever reviews the file. This diagram outlines the 3 sequential layers required to secure digital banking. A platform must establish the identity through KYC, authenticate the session at login, and finally authorize the specific transaction. The entire structure rests on identity establishment. This is the foundational root of trust. The upper layers assume the baseline identity record is accurate. If a fabricated identity breaches this onboarding level, the upper security protocols become obsolete. A correctly entered password or a verified hardware token means nothing if the person holding the account does not exist. Digital banking relies on the assumption that audio-visual evidence proves human existence. That assumption is now a systemic vulnerability. Historically, submitting a clear photographic scan was sufficient proof of life. Generative AI has severed the link between an image and reality. An attacker can now generate a flawless, photorealistic identity document in seconds. This creates a severe asymmetry in the digital ecosystem. Offensive AI tools, including open-source diffusion models, iterate rapidly and are cheap to deploy. Meanwhile, institutional defense architecture requires years of development and regulatory approval to upgrade. Securing these systems now depends on a default assumption of compromise. Financial institutions must treat all incoming digital documentation and unverified biometrics as inherently hostile until proven otherwise. The first phase of a synthetic identity attack targets the biometric capture. Fraudsters weaponize generative adversarial networks, or GANs, and diffusion models to bypass facial recognition. These neural networks are trained on massive datasets of human faces. They learn the intricate patterns of human features to synthesize photorealistic images of people who have never existed in the real world. Early KYC systems relied on passive liveness detection. The system would analyze a single static photograph, checking for unnatural lighting, texture irregularities, or edge artifacts to confirm the image wasn't a mask or a printed photo. State-of-the-art GANs produce images that easily defeat legacy passive liveness scans, yielding near-zero detection rates. The generated textures and lighting are mathematically correct to the verification algorithms. To counter this, platforms upgraded to active liveness detection, requiring a live video challenge response, like a blink or head turn. Threat actors responded by deploying adversarial deepfakes, injecting a synthetic video feed directly into the banking application's camera API. The attacker turns on their own webcam and moves their physical head. The deepfake software maps the synthetic face onto the attacker's physical movements in real time, perfectly executing the platform's required blinks and head turns. Upgrading from static photos to video challenges creates an illusion of security. Against modern AI, any single-modality biometric verification is officially deprecated. Generating a realistic deepfake face is only the mathematical component of the exploit. To pass KYC, that synthetic face must be bound to state-recognized documentation. Phase 2 requires falsifying the supporting paperwork. In Nigeria, attackers combine their generated faces with either fabricated or stolen national identity number certificates. These documents are often submitted through decentralized agent-based networks. Mobile money platforms frequently rely on thousands of independent human agents operating street-level kiosks for onboarding. Fraudsters exploit this structure. They apply social engineering tactics against untrained or complicit agents, pushing their synthetic identities and falsified paperwork through the manual tiers of the verification pipeline. This creates a massive reservoir of synthetic identity fraud. Hundreds of ghost accounts successfully clear the system and sit dormant. They act as perfect money mules, holding clean financial profiles while waiting to receive deposits. The sheer volume of these attacks triggered significant regulatory responses across Nigeria's financial sector, drawing direct intervention from the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. A perfectly fabricated ghost account is ultimately an empty vessel. To monetize the operation, the threat actors now require a mechanism to steal real capital and funnel it into their synthetic network. Phase 3 is monetization, executed through massive account takeover operations targeting legitimate users. This intelligence note details how criminals acquire leaked credentials. Because users continually reuse passwords across the internet, threat actors simply purchase massive pre-assembled lists of usernames and passwords from underground markets. Using botnets, attackers automate credential stuffing, testing millions of stolen passwords against login portals until they access an account. To bypass SMS one-time passwords, attackers execute a SIM swap, hijacking the victim's phone number. Legitimate funds are then drained into waiting ghost accounts. Between 2020 and 2023, the Nigerian interbank settlement system recorded a 312% increase in SIM swap-related fraud incidents across digital banking platforms. Synthetic identity fraud provides the untraceable endpoint required for large-scale operations. It serves as the anonymous terminal where syndicates extract and launder the proceeds of massive credential stuffing campaigns without ever exposing a real human identity. Patching individual vulnerabilities is insufficient. To defend against generative AI, the baseline KYC layer must be completely rebuilt. The first structural requirement is multimodal biometric authentication. This model forces a verification check to measure facial recognition, voice prints, and behavioral biometrics simultaneously. This strategy breaks the economics of the attack. Forcing a neural network to generate a perfectly synchronized, real-time composite of a face, voice, and behavioral cadence is computationally prohibitive for most fraud syndicates. The second requirement is cryptographic biometric binding. This protocol anchors a biometric capture to a specific verification session using a non-replayable cryptographic token. If an attacker attempts to inject a pre-recorded deepfake video feed, the system instantly flags it because the video lacks the unique, real-time cryptographic signature. Raising the technical cost of an attack secures the biometric capture. But even advanced liveness detection fails if the platform is cross-referencing that face against a fabricated document. The third requirement is direct integration with sovereign digital identity databases. In 2023, the Central Bank of Nigeria issued a directive requiring licensed digital banking platforms to integrate systems with the National Identity Management Commission. Institutions can no longer trust physical documents or local uploads. A user's real-time liveness verification must be cross-referenced directly against the biometric ledger held by the government. The fourth requirement addresses the accounts that slip through: network-level behavioral analytics. Monitoring isolated accounts is ineffective because individual ghost accounts display perfectly normal transaction behavior. Identifying a synthetic network requires mapping coordinated fund flows and shared digital signatures across thousands of nodes simultaneously. These defenses form the foundation of a zero-trust architecture. The system assumes the network is already compromised and rigorously verifies every single action, regardless of the user's prior clearance. Static regulatory checklists are obsolete. Security in the era of generative AI is no longer a fixed goal. It is a state of continuous adversarial testing. As defensive technologies evolve, the algorithms designed to defeat them will adapt just as quickly.